Hi, this is Dan Winter, and Bill Donovan's with me. Bill Donovan is our genius engineer doing all kinds of physics and advanced zero-point energy research together. We're delighted to be on this partnership. And we're delighted to share with Rogers Group in Sacred Geometry in New York. And we will be talking about the science and physics of how sacred geometry introduces the technology of the future, and not just the technology, the energy technology, but also the hygiene, as we say, your relationship to the vacuum. You know, a pine cone is obviously alive because it's of its electric sacred geometry. It gets that life because it's negentropic, centripetal. It creates a centering force. It gets voltage from gravity. In fact, the pine cone is a capacitor that knows how to be a zero-point energy device. And it's related to what we call a phase conjugate dielectric. Well, we're involved in lots of projects like that. I'm kind of the communicator, etc. Bill is the real technical engineer here. And we'll be talking about this at the conference. And the point is that if you want to deeply understand not just this urge to, give us free energy, give me the 0 point, I want a free energy device, but I don't want to take responsibility for where that free energy comes from, you see how that's a problem. The other side of that is, if in fact you knew how your body was a 0-point energy device, and you know how to make your body centripetal, negentropic, and able to attract charge. Remember the story, Jesus turns around and he knows that somebody just touched his robe because some of the capacitance just bled. How did he know that? This is called astral hygiene, and it's a geometry problem, actually. So we're going to talk about this, what's called establishing a proper relationship to the vacuum. For example, did you know that it's actually been measured that the chemistry of your blood changes when you get proper access to ground? If you're walking around in rubber shoes in the city all the time and you're living in a high, you don't get access to ground. And electrically, your blood begins to decay, and that's measurable. David Wolf is doing that work. It's good work. It's the earthing movement. But the point is that access to ground is access to a fractal, perfected distribution place for charge, gets you into phase with the universe as it was, and that establishes your communication with the entire natural kingdom. So there's all kinds of aspects of getting the dielectric of your clothing and your grounding and your building and your blood, correct? And this is a direct outgrowth of understanding the physics of 0-point energy. So not to be saying you want 0-point energy, but you're not willing to understand the real principles, which are geometry principles. Bill, was there something you'd like to say about the technology? I'm sure they'd be excited to hear a bit about the 0-point energy work.
Well, interesting thing about the density of the energy, we're talking about 10 to the 94th ergs per cubic centimeter.
In the vacuum.
In the vacuum. And when we're talking about the energy density of matter itself, the fraction between the energy density of matter and the energy density of the vacuum is equal in, that fraction is equal to the energy density of a thought and the energy density of matter, which is interesting. So that means that there's the old Hindu concept that matter is, we are simply God's dream in the universe. And so I think that has a lot to do with it, where matter is simply a virtual event nested inside of a virtual event.
Or as they say, a hologram with a weight problem.
Yeah.
One of the things we want to include in the conversations at Rogers' event in New York is this sacred geometry connection between origin of alphabet, origin of psychokinesis, origin of dream spell. So for example, we have these very advanced groups now, thanks to Vincent Bridges, doing these advanced Ophanim Enochian, like Call the Angels ritual. And I'd just like to mention one little part of that you could meditate on as you prepare to join us for this event with Roger in New York. Here's the example. So we're in Torino, very advanced group doing this work. And the leader goes to the four corners of the room and with extreme accuracy visualizes the correct Hebrew letters, pronounces them, and holds the vision so its entire optical cortex is occupied with a specific Hebrew letter, for example, Aleph in one corner. Now we now know the physics that the Hebrew letter is simply a name for one phase or tilt angle of a torus donut electric domain which surrounds your optical cortex. Paul has been having dreams about how you throw these toroids, make a dream spell. The point was that in Torino, we had such a powerful experience that literally the magnetic wind at the center, the people at the center of this ritual were blown away. It was incredibly powerful. And you know why? It's because it's the creation of a centripetal field, a dream spell. And if we plotted the physics of which Hebrew letter, or Sanskrit has the same physics actually, was used in the opposite corners, it's exactly the same phase relationship as how lasers at the four corners do what's called a pump wave to make phase conjugate optics, which is to say, make the negentropic field. And this is the origin of mind itself. And it is a geometry problem. And if you understand these symmetries and can enact them in your own aura, you have the power to throw that inertia, to throw your weight around. So, at any rate, we can have certain amount of fun in the physics of not just zero-point energy and astral hygiene and hygiene for bliss, but zero-point energy and really understanding what we like to say is the proper relationship to the vacuum. Did you know that the vacuum has a known frequency? And if you want to couple with it, there's a musical recipe. Bill is going to talk about that at the event, right, Bill?
Yeah.
Thank you.